2, 3, 4, 5. This is April the 12th, 1976. I am Ella Pruitt. I am interviewing Mr. Henry Warren Sewing of Douglas State Bank. I am interviewing him at the Douglas State Bank. Mr. Sewing, we're going to begin the interview with your early childhood. Would you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in Bremond, Bremond, Texas. What's the date?
Yes, the date.
February the 15th, 1891.
Okay, tell me as much as you can about your parents, who they were, their names, and possibly their occupations. What did they do?
My parents was Thomas Wesley Sewing and Margaret Sewing. They my father did common labor, and my mother was a washwoman.
How many children were in your family?
There were 6.
Okay. And according to your book, I see that...
Just a minute. I'm not taking into account those that passed.
Uh-huh.
See, let's see. There were actually 8 in all. Let me see that. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 in all. I mean, it's not 5 in all, but that was 8 of us.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sewing, I'm aware that your parents were very active in church. Can you recall the name of the church?
Yes, Progress Baptist Church of Bremond, Texas.
Could you describe the church? Was it a small church?
Very small, very small. To begin with, it started as just an ordinary dwelling, and finally they built a church, but it was a very, very small church that would accommodate say about 100 people.
I see. Your father, was he active in church?
Very much so.
In what capacity did he?
He was a deacon.
A deacon.
I might say a head deacon.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great deal to do with the running of the church.
Okay. What about you as a child in the church?
Well, I grew up as a Sunday school pupil. That's about all that I can say.
Were you baptized?
Yes, I was, at the age of 9.
At the age of 9. Okay. Did the church at that time, now the church has different activities for the youth, such as in the summer school they may have vacation Bible school. During those days, did they have any type of program such as this?
Not at all.
It was just basically what, you just went to church?
Yeah, Sunday school and BYPU meeting.
Okay, what about during the week now? That's used on Sunday.
Prayer meeting on Wednesday night.
Prayer meeting. Approximately how long did that last for prayer meetings?
What do you mean by
how long did the prayer meetings last on Wednesday night?
It lasts, I guess, about an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay. I also, looking back at your book, you recall picking cotton.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, was this picking cotton so to help the family? Why did you pick, what reason?
Well, it was just an industry. The cotton would have big industry in Texas.
I see.
And of course, in the fall of the year, we went off on these what you call cotton picks, and it lasted about a couple of months. Gives you about a couple of months to get your money in for Christmas and other things that are necessary to buy.
I see. Okay. Now, the struggle for an education. Why did you consider education at that time to be a struggle? Was it circumstances within the family, maybe as you had to slow down and help more with the family?
Well, I tell you, my schooling began at the age of 9. And the system provided for only 9 grades of work. You graduated at the 9th grade. As a matter of fact, the school period was very short, about 4 to 5 months in the year. And I went to school until I got to the 6th grade. And I self-taught myself until I went to Boyd Academy in East Texas. When I left public school, I was in the 6th grade. I began at the age of 9, as I said. And when I went to Boyd Academy, I entered the 9th grade and graduated from the normal course in 3 years.
Okay, now what do you mean by nominal course? I've never heard of that.
Now, you have what is known as a high school graduate, but in those kinds of schools, they wouldn't say you graduated from the high school. They said you graduated from the normal course that involved 12 years. But it's equal to the graduates in other schools.
Okay. Now, from this time, what did you do next after you graduated?
I stayed out of school 1 year and trying to find work to do to save money to go to Howard University. But I didn't, and I took an examination. I didn't pass the examination, and so I did the next best thing. I went to Tillotson College. I didn't have any money. I went there as a work student.
Okay, what type of work was available to you at that time?
As a matter of fact, it might seem funny, but most of that work was a student teacher.
Well,
I was a student teacher at Tillotson College, and when I left Tillotson College and went to Fisk University, I was a teacher there. When I arrived on the campus of Fisk University, I ended there with 25 cents. That's all the money that I had.
Now this, as you were leaving Tillotson, this is where you first met your wife, right?
Yes.
Would you tell me about your wife?
Well,
how did you meet her? Was she on campus?
Time?
Yes, I have time.
At Boyd Academy, I became acquainted with a nice young girl there, and we started going together. But our courtship didn't last very long, last couple of years, I would say. She thought that I was going with some other girl, which I was not. My sister kind of conspired with that other girl to try to do all the help that she could in breaking up Ethel and myself, but they didn't do it. But we got a little cold toward each other. We maintained friendship, however.
Now, her name was Ethel Black.
Ethel Black.
Right, okay.
We maintained friendship with each other. And the first year that I went to Tillotson College, that was in 1911. On leaving, after the commencement, we left on a train on our way home. And Anna Weidman was one of the students that was on that train. At that particular time, she was, I would say that she was 16 years of age. And she was the only girl that I've sent a postcard to. I didn't have anything else in mind. She seemed to be just a nice chap. And so when she came back the next year, it so happened that she sat at my table. I was at the head table, head suite. And the other girls that before she came, all of the other girls were my play daughters. And I had one baby daughter. And when she came, I said, well, I'll make you a baby daughter. And the kids began to tease about it. So she wrote me a little note and said, possibly it's best for you not to call me a baby daughter because it caused no confusion. And I just smiled and shook my head. Well, at this particular time that I'm speaking, she was 17 years of age. And so I was not going with anybody, so when we had our supper and parties, I'd never just go out with her. I continued to go to see Ethel, and whenever she lived in Austin, Texas also, where the school was. I continued to go there, and when I'd go back, I'd say, well, I said, I saw Ethel today. And she said, "Did you have a nice time?" She said, "Yes, I'm glad you did." Well, that kind of a thing continued for about 6 months. And she never did assume any other relationship other than just a baby daughter. So I began to think about her, and I said, "This girl looks all right to me." And I spoke to her about going with her, And she said, "Well, I'll think about it." She never did say anything else except I'll think about it. We just started going. So from then on, well, we just went together regularly. And as I said, for a total of 4.5 years. And we never had a hard word to pass between us during that entire period of 4 years. So in 1915, in May of 1915, I graduated from Tillotson College with an AB diploma. And then I went, and in the fall of that year, I went to Fisk University.
Now, you had some problems at Fisk, right?
What kind of problem? I don't know.
Like monetary problems, as far as having enough money.
Oh, I didn't have any money.
Didn't have any.
Now tell me how you
Managed to survive at Fisk?
Well, I had written the president of Fisk University, and I had informed him that while at Tillotson College, I had done some student work, student teaching, and also a monitor of the reading room and so forth. And I wanted them to provide me sufficient work so I could go to school there. And somehow or another they let me come on, but I thought they were going to have some money. And as I said, when I got on the campus, I had 25 cents left. Well, they gave me, at that time, Fisk University had a high school department too. And they gave me classes in arithmetic and, no, take it back, algebra and geometry. And I had 2 classes in each of those branches of study. And then I kept the telephone office at night. On any calls that came in, I took them. And I was having a little hard time, and I thought I'd try going out as a non-boarding student and getting a job in the meantime. But I wasn't able to find it, so I came on back as a boarding student. And this one little thing that I'm about to say, I've always been proud of myself as I thought about it. They allowed me salary, I guess they call it salary. And so when I got ready when I graduated, and I'm getting ahead of my story.
That's okay.
I didn't know just how I could get back home. I went there to stay 2 years, but my father was having no difficulty in paying for his place, and I went on, thought I'd better go out and help him. So I didn't have any money. I didn't know how in the world I was going to get home. And in the midst of this situation, I went to the office to clear my situation up, see whether I owed anything. And the girl said, "No, you don't owe anything. And you have $43.25 coming." I said, "No, I don't think you're right." She said, "Yes, you have it. You have it." And we talked about it. And so I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take this money and go to my room, down to the room, and see can I figure out just what had happened." Well, I found out when I went back at the Fisk University, having gone out to get a job and make some money. I came back January the 1st, and she had me recorded as me coming back at February the 1st. And I called her attention to that, and she said, "Well, you're wrong. You came back in February, and you ought to be glad that it is like it is." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this $43.65 here, and I'll go study it again, And if I find that I'm wrong, I'll come party. Otherwise, I'll leave it here. Now, I didn't go back at it. Now, I'm proud of myself at that point in my life.
You should be.
I was as poor as they came. I borrowed from a doctor. He's a doctor now, Denny Cummins, and I saw him. I was at a bankers convention about a couple of years ago, and I saw him. I borrowed $15 from him, $10 from another fellow, and $10 from another. And that's the way I got money to go back home after graduating. Now, I had decided, I think this ought to be interesting too, I had decided that in going back home, I wouldn't go straight home. I'd go to Dallas, Texas, where I'd meet a friend of mine and stay with him and try to get a job there. So I stopped there with the firm intention of staying over there and trying to find some work. But somehow or another, I got to feel that I ought to go home, go straight home. So I caught the train that night and went home, went to bed, and before I could get up that morning, I received a telegram from a Professor Anderson, who was principal of the high school in Austin, Texas, and telling me to come on down to Austin. They have a job for me.
What type of job? Was it a teaching job? Teaching job.
Yeah, it's a teaching job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What subjects were you going to teach then? Do you recall? Was it
I was going to teach whatever subjects
they had,
whatever school they had.
That's right.
But I went to an elementary school, see, and I think I had kids in the 6th grade, see, and I spent part of the year at the school in what they call South Austin, and then they changed from that to a school that they called the Gregory School, Gregorytown School.
Let me stop you right here just for a minute. I'd like to make a quote from out your book. I found out that a Negro school teacher with the same educational background and qualifications as a white teacher was paid only half the salary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why was this like that at that time?
Well, because one is colored and one was
black.
They made no bones
black.
about it. That's the way the system worked.
And this was in Texas.
Yeah, Austin, Texas. That was the way that the system worked. And I understand it worked that way in many places in the South. And I took pedagogy in school. That thought I'd get a number of chips on teaching because I didn't think anything else to do except go to school room teach. But there was one point that I never did see in that book. When I went to Gregory School, that kind of tough school, one of the kids was cutting up.
Was it a boy or a girl?
Boy. I got after him. He went down out. He invited me outdoors for a fight.
Oh.
I went to the principal. I told him what the boy had done. I said, "What shall I do?" He said, "Get him. Go get him." So I had to go get him.
What did the boy think of that? Did he come? Did he just come on? Did he willingly come? Or did
I got a hold of him and brought him on.
Brought him on in.
Yeah, and brought him on in. And I didn't get that in school. See?
No.
A number of things that I experienced in teaching wasn't in the book at all. So I taught there for the rest of that year. And then the following year, I went to Anderson High School. And I taught two things that have no possible relationship. I had a class in Latin, and also mathematics. I taught mathematics and Latin at Anderson High School. I was taught there for 3 years. And I liked Austin, Texas very well. I had a friend who was teaching there, and we had a nice friendship together. But in the meantime, I took a correspondence course. And
can you recall, Mr. Soren, about how much was the for college credit then? You know, now it's up to some places $42 an hour. Do you have any idea?
They didn't know. They don't. We didn't know anything like that.
Oh.
That wasn't part of the system at all. They got you as cheap as they could. Now I started with $45 a month in the elementary school, and then it changed. Then the first promotion was to $50 a month. Well, when I left the high school, it had gone up to $75 a month. Now, as I said, I took accountancy by correspondence with LaSalle Extension University of Chicago. I don't know why I took that, except thinking that maybe I could break into some high degree of work. And but I was satisfied with Austin. I was buying a new home. I guess that's all of that's in the book. I was buying a home. My wife liked it and so forth. And the street, I walked down the street with a friend, led to changing all of that. I said to this man, Ferraz, "You going to spend some money in Austin, Texas?" He said, "No, as a matter of fact, I don't intend to stay here." And he told me some good opportunity he had to get out of the way, but he didn't go. That didn't work out. But I said, "I'm not going to stay here." And I said to him, I wouldn't mind leaving Austin, Texas, if those kind of situations would come up to me. He said, "They won't come up to you. You have to go after them." And I thought about that, I prayed about it, and discussed it with my wife, and discussed it with my school principal and my other friend. And finally, I made up my mind that I wouldn't stay there. And I tore up the application to teach another year, contract rather, teach another year. And I did that because I felt that the going might get hard for me, and if I had signed the contract, I'd go back. My principal told me, so I sign up and go, and if you get a good situation there, stay. If you don't, just resign. But no, I didn't want any bridges to be left for me to come back over. So I came on to, went to Chicago. And I looked for a job all day long. But I saw that Chicago wasn't the place for me. And I left that night. I borrowed $10 from a cousin of mine. I realized that if I stayed there another day, I wouldn't have money to get out of town. So I borrowed $10 from him, and he suggested that I stop at the YMCA here in Kansas City. Didn't know a single person in the here.
So this is your first coming to Kansas City, on the way from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I came down. I stopped one night at the Y, and I met some people there from Texas, and I got a room with those people. And I wasn't there a day, about 2 days, I would say, before somebody had stolen all of my clothes. Well, that was a pretty big blow to me. And I remember one day I sat up in the window, and I said to myself, what a fool I've been, tearing up that good contract. And here I am. At that particular time, I was working at the freight house. You know what that is. I was very common on that. But I got kind of picked up a little bit. Said, well, maybe I can get something else. And one day I saw a little ad in the paper say, a stock room on it, color. Well, I got permission from the timekeeper to go to tend some business, and I went there, and there were several other people there at the time. And he asked me what I had been doing in the past. I said I was a teacher of Latin and mathematics. And he said, well, I'll tell you one thing. It's a world of difference between this job and the job as a teacher of Latin or mathematics. And mine was, yes, I realize what you said, but the same fundamental principles that would make a person a good Latin teacher would make him a good on this job. And so he said, well, you can call me. And then he said, I have dozens of people come in here, but you can call me. I'll let you know. I left and got the job. So when at the evening came, I had a debate with myself as to whether I should stop by. Because I said somebody in the meantime would be hiding and no use to me. And the reason why I was debating, if I stopped by, my contract would run, I had a, you get a pay and then they give you one of these slips,
Yes.
And I said, my pass would run out. And that cost me another nickel to get home. And I kind of halfway thought I couldn't afford to take a loss on that nickel. But I said, well, I'll go now. So I stopped by. Somebody was being interviewed at that time. And when he got through, he said, well, I've decided on another fellow, and says, you can call in a couple of weeks, and if he doesn't succeed, then I'll talk to you again. And then he said, come up soon. I knew I had the job when he called my name to come up soon. And he said, fellas have been coming in all day here, but you said something to me this morning that stayed with me all day long, and I'm going to give you the job. They gave me the job, and after I worked there for 6 weeks, I became very dissatisfied.
Were you dissatisfied with the pay? What was it?
$15 a week.
$15.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good right there, yeah.
So I got the job and I worked there. And I went to see him and told him that I liked the job all right, but I had a wife and a child and I couldn't get along with on 15. He said, well, I'll think about it.
Now, were your family, were they here in Kansas City at that time? They were still in?
No, not in Austin. I sent her home, her and the child home to wait until I could send for them in Cameron, Texas.
Okay.
So anyhow, he said, I'll think about it. Now I was on, so far as the clerks is concerned, I was on a black clerk, the others were white. And Saturday came, I got ready to go. He said, come up, son. He said, I've done well as I could for him. He increased my pay by $3. From 15
to 18.
I said, but don't say anything to the other fellas about it because they'll get jealous. He said. And I think that's right. And I worked and finally I got disgusted and I said, I'm going to get me another job. I talked to the superintendent of the schools here. I talked to the principal of the high school.
Who was the superintendent at that time?
Mr. Oh, heavy set fellow that was just before Professor Slager.
Pearson?
Yeah,
Pearson,
I talked to him. And and finally, I went to Western University and talked there. And I got a job there. They hired me immediately. And I stayed there for 3 years. And I resigned there to take up life insurance salesmanship. And after working there, first as a part-timer, as a full-timer, I was there for a year. I don't mean that. Yes, it was. Not quite a year, however. I was sent to School of Agency Supervision at Atlanta, Georgia, and that was in 1923, I believe, the fall of 1923. And then that following December, I was made manager of the Kansas City agency. And I stayed there until the company went broke.
Okay.
about is 1917. And I believe it's 17. I'm pretty sure it was, because I was drafted in 1917. And several of my friends left to attend the Army school. A good friend of mine, Willoughby Campbell of Austin, Texas, and son of a very prominent minister, who subsequently became principal of Anderson High School. And there was William H. Ferrance, there was Upshon, all of those fellows that went. But I didn't go. I didn't apply because, number one, there had been a riot of soldiers in Kansas City, not Kansas City, in Houston, Texas. And they, as a matter of fact, they prosecuted those fellas and killed a number of them. And I felt that it was so wrong for them to be protecting the life of a colored woman, and all of them get killed that way. That was in Houston, Texas, that happened. And I was just bitter against going to the Army, and I didn't go. But I was drafted September 1st, 1918. I was drafted and went to Des Moines, Iowa. And I stayed there 3 months. And I never carried a gun on my shoulder during the entire time that I was there. And my wife was confined to in the office of the officers of the. And never forget that date, November 18th, when I was discharged and went back home.
Okay.
So that wraps up that part.
Now, after getting settled in Kansas, you started on the insurance road, right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
After
getting settled. What kind of insurance was it?
Life insurance.
Life insurance. Do you recall with what company?
The Standard Life Insurance Company.
Okay, then tell me about that. What was it like as an insurance?
Well, you know, there have been so many incidents in my life that figured in me going into the various organizations and activities that just open up. I had a friend from Austin, Texas, that was up here working in the laundry. He had charge of the laundry at Western University. And one Sunday evening, he came over to visit with me, myself and my wife. And in the meantime, he said, well, I took out $1,000 policy with the Metropolitan Life Insurance the other day. I said, why did you do it? I said, we have a company, the Standard Life Insurance Company. I wasn't connected with the Standard Life, but I believed in black business. And I said, why didn't you do that? I said, you have a daughter going to Mary Allen Seminary, and she's taking commercial work. You think she's going to be able to get a job with the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company? And I talked to him. He said, well, I know none was wrong, and I just went ahead and did it. I stepped to my phone, called up the Standard Life man, and told him that I'd like him to come to school the next day. I had a prospect. And I gave him that, or introduced him to this prospect. In first place, in teaching school mathematics, I had my class divided up into 4 parts. I had a monitor for each one of those sections, so I could leave and they'd carry on the grade. So anyhow, I carried him to see several places, and then.
Now, what school was this at that
Western
time?
University.
Western, okay.
And so the man that was here, he was one of the field men. He said, "You make a good salesman." I asked him a number of questions about it. And I said, well, what do you do when you write up everybody? He said, that never happened. And so anyhow, I'd go around with them at Prospect, and they lined me up as a part-time salesman. A part-time salesman. And I worked, I started in 1922 as a part-time salesman, and I wrote more business than 2 of the men that were in the office and running the office there. So I was selected as one to attend what is known as School of Agency Supervision in with the Standard Life Insurance Company after, Standard Life Insurance Company. So I finished that and came on, and then the close of that particular year, they made me manager of the office. And I was with the Standard Life Insurance Company until it was taken over by the Southeastern Trust Company.
Then, Mr. Sewing, now, I'm not familiar with these terms. And you said they took them over. What, did they buy them out? What happened? I don't understand. What happened? You said now, this other company took it over.
Here's what happened. The president of the Sentinel Life Insurance Company was a Heman E. Perry. That was his name. He's from Houston, Texas. He never, so far as books were concerned, he'd never been beyond the 6th grade, and yet he's one of the most skillful businessmen that we had. And he was very successful in building up the Standard Life Insurance Company. He wasn't satisfied with that. Then he organized a bank. That bank is still operating as a Citizens Trust Company. And it's a Citizens Trust Bank, but it's in Atlanta, Georgia. However, it has, I believe, a 12-story building, office building, and they're doing good work there. So now, he wasn't satisfied at doing that, but he started what is known as a service company. And they sold stock, and they were building drugstores, building subdivisions of land and all of that sort of thing, and just overshot themselves. And they had, getting the money to do all these big things, they give liens on the stock of what is known as I believe I forget the name of this company, that the company was a holding company of the Standard Life Insurance Company. And when they gave as security that stock, and when they weren't able to meet their obligation, that Southeastern Trust Company just took over the bank, insurance company. And after they gutted the company of all of its goods, assets, then they disposed of that company, what was left, to the National Benefit Life Insurance Company. And the National Benefit Life Insurance Company made a great mistake in trying to take care of that, but they didn't do it, and that caused them to go under. And after that, I went with the Atlanta Life Insurance Company, first as an agent, then next as a manager of the department.
Okay, now I see in here, I'm not sure, but when you were a branch manager of the Kansas City office, that you did some recruiting.
Oh, well, I was first the regional supervisor of the National Benefit Life Insurance Company before going to the Atlanta Life. And I had supervision of 5 states, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. And I recruited managers for those particular agencies. And it was a very difficult situation because it's hard to find management material in a group of people that have been so slightly exposed to business, And but as I said, the National Benefit Life Insurance, I was recruiting managers at that time. They wasn't able to continue, and so I joined up with the Atlanta Life Insurance Company, first as a salesman, and then as a manager.
Well, I just have to smile at here. I see you have Muskogee, Oklahoma, and that's where I'm from.
Is that so?
That is where I'm from.
Did you, wait a minute, what's his name of this man? There was Leroy. Leroy was.
Now, Mr. Sewing, in 1929, you said that the stock market crashed. And about this time, well, in 31, the National Benefit Life Insurance Company had failed. Mm-hmm. You talk about a man in your book named James H. Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, now, was he your manager? Just what
Now let me see if I get myself together. Brown, of course, he's the chairman of the board, Douglas State Bank.
Now, right.
And I'm chairman of the executive committee of the same bank. And I just talked with him today. Well, yeah, I met Jim Brown. It must have been about, 1931 when I met Jim Brown. Somehow or another he came by the office of the National Benefit Life Insurance Company, and I met him casually. He was 21 at that particular time. And then I was going up the street, up 7th Street, I believe, and cancer to cancer, and he came down. And I shook hands with him again, and I was impressed with the way that he shook hands, and he was very intelligent youngster. So I began to make some investigation of him. And I started him and Rostel Mansfield in a little schooling, getting them ready for the National Benefit, bringing them into the National Benefit Life Insurance Company. I think that was about 31. It was not soon, long after that the National Benefit stopped writing insurance at all, so I had to let Jim go. And so that was the National Benefit Life Insurance Company.
Right.
So sometime after that, I think it was 1933, I went with the National Benefit Life Insurance Company as an agent, a salesman. And I believe it was in the following year that I recruited Jim Brown at this particular time as manager of what is known as the ordinary department. And I recruited him at that time, at the same time made him assistant manager. And now I was fired from that line of life insurance company, and he would take my place. You don't have that in the book?
No.
Well, when I went with the line of life insurance company, I was already a salesman. I accepted a job as being in charge of the special ordinary department. And they arranged to give me, in addition to the commission that I made, they arranged to give me a salary of $75 a month. And I told the fellow by the name of Elder, who's supervisor of this new setup, that was not enough. And you can't make it on that. He said, well, he said the company was not familiar with the capacities of these people that had come in to them. And he felt that they would do better, we'd get more when they saw that we were able to make it. Well, at the first, in the end of the first 15 months, that was a temporary contract we had. This $75 that they would give was getting me. They went ahead and counted up all that it would come to, and wanted to make my salary from then on, the salary part, $60-some. I wrote out my resignation, and not Jim, but the supervisor wrote for them, and they made a change. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And then after that, they increased me, and they made certain changes in the contract sometime. But I built the organization up to the point where I was making over $10,000 a year. That's way back then. And some of the officers most of the officers in the home office didn't like to see that, because some of them were not making that, you see. And they made some changes in my contract. I permitted it, the contract. I accepted it. And the end of the next year, I still owed the $10,000. Say they wanted to make a change again. I said, I'll carry you to court. And so we fussed along that for quite a while. And finally, they went through with it. And I got a lawyer, contest what they'd done. And finally, we settled for $13,500. They just give me that, you see. You see. So I thought making too much.
Okay. Now, moving along in May of 1934, you're in Kansas City, and you said you were persuaded to accept a manager's contract for the development of a special ordinary
That's what I'm
department.
talking
That's
about
the
now.
same one you're talking about, right? Okay, now, after that, what did you start doing? Okay, you've gotten fired, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your next step? I mean, you still get, we still got to take care of that family.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's 1934.
Right.
Yeah, 1934. Oh, yeah. I went with the, no, I talking about Atlanta.
Right, you're talking about Atlanta.
Well, that wasn't 34 when that was, I accepted that in 34, and that went on for 20-some years. And it was in 1900, let's see, 1952 when I received the letter, and my contract is canceled in 1952.
Okay. Now, I see a picture where in 1940s, this is 46, they're having a banquet at your home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the celebration all about, the banquet? What are you celebrating?
I was able, as a matter of fact, I started in the general insurance business, some years back, and I had to send back and get my insurance cases through as a broker, other states. And we were able, Dr. Blunt was the first Negro that had been elected to the Kansas legislature, and he spent a term there. And then next we had Bill Towers, and we received, through their help, an agency connection with the Preferred Fire Insurance Company. And in celebrating that, we threw a banquet. That was, I believe, it was about 20th or 22nd of January 1946, and invited quite a number of guests there. The picture of that, and that was what that's all about. Now there's another thing. I had no idea of making any mention of a bank at all, because that hadn't been in my mind. I was thinking about this general insurance business and how fortunate we were to get a line ourselves, or no line, it was legal reserve. And so but I did, making a talk to them, the group. I said, we need a bank in this town. We need a bank. I don't know why I said it, because it wasn't part of my plan. And then that was all.
Now, I know it was banks at that time, but do you have any idea how many banks were operating by?
About 11. All over the country, only 11. We thought it was 12, but found out the bank at Tuskegee was not operating. So it's only 11 all over the United States. And I'll get that pretty soon, too.
Okay.
That was the purpose of that. Now, this man, Jim Brown, that you heard about, I said, Jim, we're going over, and I want you to go over town with me, and I'd like for you to meet a fellow by the name of Butler Desmond. At that particular time, the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company had been incorporated, and I was a founder of that company, and so all of that is in there. And so we went by to see Butler Desmond, and I made this statement to him. He asked me, how is the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company coming in? I said, fine. We've just put through an application to increase our stock. And I said, and one of these days, we're going to have a bank in this town. That's the second time that I mentioned that. He said, now, son, you're coming down my alley. That's what you ought to do. And I told him 3 to 5 years. He said 3 to 5 years is too late. You ought to do it now. And so when we left that office, I said, Jim, I want you to go by the library and get the Tuskegee yearbook, and we'll read up on the banks that are operating. And we did that, studied that, and went to Topeka. We didn't know who the banking director was there, but we went to his office, I looked at the board, and the bulletin board, not bulletin board, but of names, the address, and saw where he was, and went there and talked with him about establishing a bank. And we said to him that we know that there's already too many banks in Kansas City, but we also know that a large segment of the population of Kansas City doesn't have adequate banking services. And you know the reason for that as well as we don't. And they just did that. And then he said, well, do you know Willard Bynthal? I said, yes, I was co-chairman with him in the Negro College Fund. He said, well, he's a member of this board. He'd have a whole lot to say about it. And I suggest you talk with him. And we talked with him. That's where it started.
Let me ask you this. That's the first beginning, how you just first started. I saw also here where you even went to the library. You were gathering information.
That was what I said, Jim.
Right, okay.
Now you will find in that connection, after we started that we were having it, I made a trip covering 8 banks in the United States of America. Have you got to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I made that trip. Getting the information, what I call vital information. And that trip was more beneficial than anything I'd ever done.
How were you? Now, did you do this? Were you financed by someone else? I mean, did someone help pave your way back, paying for your bus fare or your room, or you did this on your own?
Listen, I've always been a good salesman, see. And we had elected an organizing committee. Sherman Scruggs was one, you might have heard of that name, Matthew, yes. And some number of them. And I went to them, and I said to them, let us, each one of us, put up or make a pool of money, and when we do sell stock, well, we'll give you credit on it, see? And they put up the money for me to make the trip.
Well, you are right.
And the first place that second place that I stopped was at the office of the Atlanta Life Insurance Company to let them know what I was doing. And then I got information from all of these 8 banks that was very vital. And we had planned to have $125,000 total capital in surplus. We had advised to get $168,750, so we changed it there. We had a man in our setup for cashier. He was in his 60s. We were told that he was too old to begin because he'd have a whole lot of study to do. He was a friend of mine.
What was his name?
C.S. Matthews. And I contacted him, got him to agree not to be cashier. Well, those were some days that we had. When we first started, it was soliciting stock, a subscription. We solicited $180,000, and when we got ready to turn it into money, most of that stuff went by the wayside.
Would you mind if I read a prayer that you have in your book?
Help yourself, I didn't know.
Now, this is during the time that you had found the cashier. This is talking about the cashier.
Yes.
It's after you return. This is after you return to Kansas City on July 23rd, 1946. This is when you had a lot of valuable information from those 8 banks. And it says, I uttered this prayer. Lord, we find that we need a technically trained man for cashier for our team. Lord, you know him. Where can he be found? We are asking that you will guide our steps to him and provide us with the means and power to attract him to our team. In other words, Lord, you call him, and we will select whom you call. Please, Lord, let your will be done in this as it is done in heaven.
I didn't know that there.
Yes, it is. It sure is. It sure is. And then it's another picture where the company moved from the building to the Masonic building and its first expansion. And they have different people there.
But we did.
And you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, we got Ephraim C. Yearn. That was the young man that we got as cashier.
And this was the Masonic building. Is this
right there on
right?
the corner. Yeah,
on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, we're up until the time where you have gone and to 8 different banks, and we've got the plans ready. But in December of 1946, something happens within your family. Will you tell me about that?
No. I left in July. Wait a minute. I believe it's July 1946 to cover these 8 banks. And before I left, my father was ill and my mother was ill, and had been ill for about 3 years. And I told my wife if anything happened to my father while I was on, I wouldn't come back. I'd continue to wait. So when I reached first went to Nashville, Tennessee, Penny Savings Bank, I believe it was. Then I went to Atlanta, Georgia, Citizen Trust Company, and then I went from there to a little bank in Virginia. I forget the name of it right now. And then when I reached, let me see, if I reached a bank in New Jersey. I have it in a book there, I don't know. Anyhow, Mr. Ridley's bank, and there was a telegram waiting for me saying that my father had passed. And that was the thing that had happened while I was on the trip.
Okay. Now, upon returning back to Kansas City, you had made some arrangements for the Masonic building, and according to the book, the lease had failed. And you asked Mr. James, is it McQuarrie?
McCurry.
McCurry, right. To sell his business, which was a filling station. And what was his reaction to that?
Well, now let me say this to you. I have found that if you see something that you need, and you need for a very useful purpose, get it. So we found that the Masonic building was not adequate. They didn't move fast enough, and we're glad they didn't. It wasn't adequate. So then I saw the best. See, I was in partnership with God on this sort of thing, and I knew that the thing was going over. I had asked Mr. McCoy, I told him, Mr. McCoy, I said, you have business here, but the bank needs this spot, and we would like for you to go out of business and let us have this spot. He said, well, my brother's part owner in this, but, and he said, you talk with him. So I talked with his brother, and his brother had told me that one of the big stores wanted that, and they had offered, I believe, had offered $6,000. I said, well, we would like to have it, but we can't pay that for it. For $5,000 the most we can pay for it. And he said, finally he decided that he'd go along, and then I talked to Mr. McCurry, that had the business here, and they agreed. And I made an arrangement to pay him on an installment basis, but and he accepted that, but we paid for it in cash. We got the money from the Sentinel loan and investment company that we were going to liquidate to go into the banking business, and so we paid the $5,000 cash.
Okay, now the groundbreaking, January the 22nd, 1947. It snowed.
It what be Monday. And that Sunday and Sunday night, the snow, it was quite a heavy snow. And we were to have it the next morning. And we did. We did have it. But what we did, we went over here, we had a feed store over here, and got some bales of hay and spread out hay all over there. And sun came out, it was beautiful. And we had a tremendous crowd. A tremendous crowd. I don't know what the picture's in there or not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, had a tremendous, and the Sumner High School band punished the music. They had several speakers, and all the enthusiasm was very, very high.
Okay, we're moving on to July 1, 1947. Was supposed to have been one of the tentative dates set for the opening of the bank, but a strike occurred by the building trades, which was in your favor.
That's your life.
Now, can you explain how that was in your favor?
Well, we were not quite ready, and we had specified that we were going to open at that particular time, but we were not ready financially, and it was a great favor to us because August the 25th, we wait until midnight getting the bank ready of that day, and the following day we were ready.
Okay, the bank was actually open August the 25th, 1947?
Well, we had our opening,
the
but
opening.
for the following Monday, the opening is on Sunday.
Okay, now, also in the book, I think it should be noted that when the bank did open, you had all types of new machines to be used.
Yes.
And that Douglas State Bank was the first bank in Kansas City, Kansas, who had that night depository,
right.
which was really something.
Mm.
Okay, I noted none of the first employees had banking experience.
Yes, I would say that prior to that we sent, it was in October 46, we sent our cashier to Mechanics and Farmers Bank.
Now that was Ewing at that time?
Ewing.
Okay.
And he spent eight months up there. And then we sent later on in the new year, we sent two young ladies there, and they spent about 3 months each, approximately. And they were going to telework and just getting a little brushing up. And then we borrowed, when we opened the door, opened the bank, we borrowed a few from white banks.
Okay, now I know with none of the employees having experience, did that have an effect on getting into the Kansas City Clearinghouse Association? Didn't have any effect. Okay, well, how had you had any training prior to that in banking?
12 years in a finance company.
In a finance company.
So
this
loan and investment company.
Right. Okay. Now there was a fellow mentioned in 1952. Wendell A. Robbins came to the bank, and would you tell me what he came to the bank for?
1952.
I believe this is about the time he was trying to get some money to build.
Oh yes, I know what happened there. You know, we had a flood. We had a flood, and it displaced quite a number of people. And the government passed measures making it possible for a person that was qualified to provided that he could get backing from the bank to build some of these houses, these low-cost houses. And Robbins, they had their account at the Commercial National Bank. He talked to me, and I told him, provided that they changed their account to Douglas State Bank, we would help them. So we give them the go-ahead to go ahead and build those houses on what is known as Spears Crest at that particular time. So that was what that was.
Now, Ewing was a cashier. You had another cashier at this time, Tillman.
Oh, yes. We had 5 Ewing.
Okay. And Tillman was the new cashier.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. During the first year that the bank began operating, would you tell me how that first year went?
It did fine. We were told by FGCI examiner that it would be about 5 years before we'd be able to be in the profit. Mm-hmm. But we ended up the year and we had a profit the first year. Mm-hmm. That's due to the fact that we were able to buy over the business of the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company. Mm-hmm. So we started with some business to begin with.
Okay.
And we were very careful. You see, the Sentinel Loan Investment Company did some of the work that a bank would ordinarily do anyhow. And we had 12 years of that. Okay. We made installment loans. We made many automobile loans, and for the experience of it, we made a couple of mortgage loans.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now there was a name mentioned in your autobiography, Squires.
Yes.
What is the first name?
Levanis, Levanis, Levanes, Levanis. I think it's Levanes.
Okay.
Squires.
Okay, now what part did he have at that time?
Well, he must have just, what years?
Okay, it gave his name, and it says, let me see, Squires. Joined the bank in January 1955.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Well, Squires was working for a magazine. I forget the name of the magazine. Look magazine. And what city was it? Anyhow, Look magazine. And he wrote me a letter for an appointment, for going to get an appointment with me to discuss coming to the bank. He was making at that particular time $65 a week. Yeah, $65 a week. And so he came and talked to me. And I told him that our maximum beginning salary was $50 a week. And he said he would take it. And I said, well, now you were buying an automobile and you will be $15 a week less, and that's $65 a month. How can you do it? He said, I'm willing to make the sacrifice. He said, I've lived on less money before and I can do it again. And said, I see an opportunity here, and that's why I would be willing to do it. So I hired him as a teller to begin with, and he progressed very, very fast.
I would like to note that on June the 1st, 1968, he assumed the presidency of the Spoke Parkway National Bank in Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, yeah, you see, Ed Tillman was interested in that organization. And he was telling me that, told me about it, what they were planning. And I called his hand on it. I said, we're not supposed to be getting rid of some of our employees in order to go there. He said he was going to be chairman of the board and Squires would be a president. And so when I took it up with the bank, they went underground. You know what underground
yes,
is to. And so we had a man here by the name of Davis, and he was here at this particular time, and there was a bank in Houston that was in the organization, and we loaned him to the Riverside National Bank to spend a few days there. And when he came back, Ed Tillman told me that Davis was thinking of going with this bank. And he also told me at that particular time that Squires was going over to this new bank that was being organized. That's the first time that we knew anything about it. Now, Squires had been with us he'd been with us either about 13 or 14 years.
13.
Yeah, 13 years. And so, yes, he went over there as the president after 13 years of training. And that he came as a teller and moved up to the executive vice president. He became the executive vice president of Douglas State Bank here. So he went on this new setup.
Okay. Also, I would say one of your original employees, Mrs. Garland.
What about her?
That was here ever since she was started with the bank in 1946. Oh, could you tell me a little about her?
Well, number one, we needed a person at the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company, and we made some inquiries about Mrs. Garland. Found that she was in West Kansas, and we had her to understand that we had a job for her. In the meantime, she had no training in bookkeeping, and we started out with a training program for her. I was the teacher, and I taught her for several weeks, I'd say. I don't possibly remember that, several weeks. And she was hired as a bookkeeper for the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company. And she worked until the Sentinel Loan and Investment Company was dissolved and the Douglas State Bank began. But in 1946, we were going through an organizational process, had to sell stock and do a number of things and getting ready for the opening of the bank in the following year.
Okay. Now, I would like to read the group of officers and directors started in 1947. H.W. Sewing, President. James H. Brown, Vice President. Isidore Gross, Vice President. Dr. W. A. Love, Board Chairman. W.C. Shelton, Board Secretary. Bishop John A. Gregg. Dr. Sherman D. Scruggs. John T. Thornton. Wesley Elders. G.B. Buster. Reverend I. H. Henderson, Sr., Charles S. Matthews, Reverend Thomas Napper, R. Rostel Mansfield, and Cardell D. Meeks, attorney. Now, daughter, what they're doing?
I don't know. It's not a great deal that I can tell you about it. Dimple, the baby, is, let's see, Dimple is 52. She married a boy that went to school here, and then went to University of Kansas at Manhattan. He finished veterinary medicine, has a business of his own, a small animal hospital. Dimple is the rich daughter of the family, so to speak. Their first house, they had built a nice house, and then they moved from that house to another new house. At the time, it was $66,000, and they put money into it, ran over 70. And then, to my mind, they did the foolish thing of selling that house at $72,000 and bought a house almost $200,000, $188,000, and the payments were between $1,400 and $1,500 a month. But they've had no problems so far, and I don't suppose they will. But I believe that when the newness wears off, they will have second thoughts about it. Now, he's been in an automobile accident, and it shook him up pretty badly. It's going to take him about, I suppose it's going to be about 2 or 3 months before he fully recovers. Now, Dimple is running the business, and it's, I suppose their income in that place is somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 in that business that they're in. And they're doing well. Now, Margaret, Dimple is 52 and Margaret is 56. And Margaret was married to a young fellow. They broke up about 5-6 years ago. And she worked for the welfare. She worked for a number of years. And then she quit and just decided that she wasn't going to work. But finally she went back. And she was able to make up what she drew down of her pension money. And she has retired, and she's 56 years of age. And she does jobs that she wants. For a long time, she was just making different articles and farming them out to store there. And and she's done all right.
Mr. Soren, I would like to thank you on behalf of the Black Archives. You've really done things for this community, not only within this community, all over the United States. You also told me one thing I wanted to cover. There was someone who came to Douglas State Bank from Atlanta, Georgia. Am I correct to do some kind of study on it, or?
There was a fellow by the name of Ed Ines. He got his PhD from Harvard, in finance. And during the time that he died, he made a study of the Mechanics and Farmers Bank in Durham, North Carolina, and in the Douglas State Bank in Kansas City. He finally got a job as one of the professors at, I guess it's Southern States, Southern, I believe it's one of the universities in Houston, Texas. Texas Southern, I believe it is. And he worked at that for a number of years. And now he has a chair of banking at the Atlanta University where he's employed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Soren.
You're welcome.